We'll be looking at the Browning Safari that I have on the table, and there are a few collectors that collect only the Browning Safari. I don't talk about them much, and actually that's why I'm making the video. They were asking me why don't I ever talk about them, and I think I have from time to time. And this one is in 458 Winchester Magnum, so this would be a more scarce Browning Safari. And actually, I checked before filming just to be sure, does it say on the rifle anywhere Browning Safari? And I don't remember it ever saying Safari on any of them, yet that seems to be how they're known. And these seem to have come after the Browning Supreme, which we're going to look at in a moment. So everything that you would want in a bolt action rifle is here. You can always tell them if you're looking at the used gun racks by the stepped barrel. You can see how there's the chamber and then another step. And some people said that's a good thing. I think that it's a trademark thing. It looks fine to me. They ordinarily had very good sights, and this is no exception. I should mention that that front sight is not factory. Someone took the front sight off, and then I sent it to a gunsmith, and then he put a barrel band front sight on, which is fine, actually, probably better than the factory. The barrel band sight is almost always superior in that it's very difficult to get them to fall off. And in a 458 Win Mag, there's a lot of recoil. Everything else about the rifle, it's made in Belgium, of course, and is Mauser 98, which means it's the best action. The bolt release might not be familiar to you. Works very simple. You just press here, and then you can remove the bolt, which we'll do in a minute. Ordinarily, they were stocked very well. I don't know, the details of the factory, but they must have had a number of excellent stockers, and the fit and finish is excellent. We've got a recoil lugging here, and then we've got a floor plate. I think this has some engraving, and I'm pretty sure this is aluminum, but I've owned others that were steel. Not that it makes that much of a difference, but the profiling of the stock is just about ideal. It's always a compromise between the Monte Carlo comb for scope use, or the classic stock with no Monte Carlo comb for use with the iron sights. And this one, I was just looking at it. I mean, it's totally comfortable either way. Oh, here's something of interest. My collection is such that I don't often go and study each gun the way I should. This has a Buehler base, and I'm pretty sure I have Buehler rings somewhere. And what I like about this is, how people are buying these 20 MOA Picatinny rails? Well, on this one, you can simply turn this dial, and as far as I can tell, that's for elevation. So you have the elevation of the scope to work with, and you have the elevation of the base itself. So I'm assuming it pivots. And we'll try that out, I guess. Wonderful rifle. I think this flips down. Yes, it does. And I've seen people put a lot of money into these with different custom floor plates. These are sort of on par with any Mauser sporter, probably a Winchester Pre-64 Model 70, although these don't have that comb breech. They just have the ramp, which is fine. But the 458 is, I would say it's safe to say, known as a cartridge that feeds well, just the shape of the cartridge and the length. And naturally, you probably know about the 458 Lot, which is a little more powerful than the 458. But for many years, I knew people who were going to Africa, and they just took a 458. Some of them only took a 458 and just used it for everything. Excellent checkering pattern. Anytime you interrupt a checkering pattern, that takes a little bit more skill. I mean, a trained person would probably chuckle, but for me, that would take hours and to get it right. And this is nicely done too, over the wrist. That's a nice feature. If you come across 458 Safari, or actually any Browning Safari, especially in this condition, it's ideal. And I'm pretty sure I had at least 2, maybe more people write me from Alaska, and they also, like the African hunters, just use 458 for everything because they can, load it up, load it down. It's extremely versatile cartridge. And just reading off the barrel, Browning Arms Company, and then made in Belgium and other markings. Just a superb rifle. And most of the time when you buy the bigger calibers like 375 and 458, people are not rushing to the range to shoot hundreds of rounds with these big cartridges. So normally the bore is pretty much like new. Anyway, we took out the bolts. So there's Mauser 98, but it doesn't mean that much. This story gets more interesting. So then there was a chance for me to buy yet another Browning Safari in 458, but it didn't come with a stock. So here it is. And here's what's cool about this. So this one also says made in Belgium, Browning Arms Company, 458 Winchester Magnum, and so forth. But have a look at this. It's an entirely different mechanism. First off, you'll see there's no claw. The action at the back, at first blush, looks to me like a Mauser 98. And I kind of thought that's what I was buying. I buy a lot of things without seeing them too well, especially since the channel. I probably should spend more time studying things, but that's okay. And so it has the same bolt release. See, same thing as this is the Mauser 98. And take a look at this adaptation. They couldn't have made many of these. So it's actually a completely different system. This is not a controlled round feed. It has a Saco extractor, and this bolt head is machined into the bolt body. And if you look really carefully, there's actually a line right there, and it's held together by a pin, and the pin actually sticks out of the bolt body right there. You can see that black circle. So that's quite interesting. It has the safety lug like a Mauser 98 would. And all the other features of the bolt are similar or the same. I don't know about the gas ports. This one has 2 gas ports. This one has 1 gas port. And I'm not sure why they would have made a 458 that's not a controlled round feed. I'm assuming because for a period of time, and our younger viewers wouldn't know this, but for a period of time, everybody wanted, or many people wanted to be able to just drop a cartridge into the action and close the bolt. And that wasn't always possible with controlled round feed action. So this one would do it, and I tried it, and it does, because the Saco extractor, which is very positive, will always jump over the rim of the cartridge, the 458, which, as you know, is a belted cartridge. Now, here's the other story. So I didn't pay much for this action. You must have noticed by now. This is a very rusted action. And I buy these. I actually look for them. They talk about them as salt wood rifles. So when you hear about a Browning rifle, some of them could be salt wood. All that happened, apparently, and I've read many versions of what happened. Apparently the logs, the walnut logs, were dumped somewhere, and then wherever they were dumped, they ended up in contact with salt water and sea worms. So I had a couple of stocks that had some really interesting sea worm action in them, and then the salt in the wood would come out of the wood, wouldn't be apparent really after drying. So you get this corrosion. Now, some people panic. I don't panic unless the bore is rusted, and of course the stock isn't in contact with the bore, unless there was terrible neglect. But we've got some rust, really severe rust happening here. And as you know, I like projects. I don't have as much time as I used to, especially with the channel, which is actually a wonderful thing. But this looks unsolvable. It's not unsolvable. You can draw file the barrel. And actually, I started. That's when I decided to make the video. I started draw filing. So that just means filing with long strokes. And this was really deep corrosion. And you can see I'm trying to be careful to not file away the markings on the barrel. And it'll take time. This was terribly corroded. Well, you can see that it is on this side. And so I'll have to file this away and, work away. And rust has a nasty feature to it. It kind of keeps going unless you get rid of it all. I suppose it's sort of a cancer type situation. The rest of the action is surprisingly fine. I mean, we have some residue here, which I thought I'll leave. Then you can see what's what for filming. And a bit of rust on the bolt. But this may seem unsolvable, but it's not difficult at all, really, to resolve. I'm most of the time as a collector after, the mechanism and the idea of the rifle. But there are collectors who will study, how many grooves in this button and the condition of this screw and so on. But I'm not one of those. This has actually better engraving and a steel floor plate compared to the other Browning Safari. And some of these rifles were made in Finland, but usually the smaller calibers, the bigger actions, they were almost all made in Belgium. But this truly is the first one that I've seen made in Belgium. Everything matches, and it has that really unique bull face. And in fairness, you can see how deep that bolt face is. It's significant, which is a good feature. I'll show you the other one, which, that's a typical 98 with all the advantages. And the disadvantage of the claw may not jump the rim, which I didn't try. Sometimes it actually works. Anyhow, nice gold-plated trigger. So then the more practically minded of you will wonder, what do I do for a stock? So when I have a project like this, I kind of set it aside, and when I can in the evenings or whenever I come down, and I had to make a decision. Will I simply file everything and get rid of all the engraving and sort of start over, which I could have done. And then I decided, no, this is savable. You can chase engraving, as you know, and take a look at this side. This side actually is pretty good. Like, this engraving is sound and the rust is lower down. Bear in mind that the stock covers most of this. I'll get rid of it just to arrest the rust, but I'm going to leave this. And then here are some, iffy spots on this side where the rust is affecting the engraving. But I'm going to dance around it and then just keep it as is for a little while, shoot it, and then maybe I'll find an engraver that can, recut it. I'll take some pictures so that they'll know what's what, where they can copy the other side. And this, of course, is an extra lug. I thought of ignoring it or even removing it because it's not really necessary. But at the time, everybody likes to see this sort of thing. Anyhow, getting back to the point I was going to make. So what do you do with an action? Well, I lucked out, and here is like a near mint condition action, stock from a Browning Supreme, which I would drop in there for you, but I have the floor plate attached to the action. But this actually sits in this stock almost perfectly, but I couldn't show you too much because this prevents me from seating it in the action for now. So I'm not sure if I made the marking on this stock. It'll go about right here. So I typically, I either use whiteout on the bottom, I'll paint this with whiteout and then set it in the action. And then I have an exact sort of inscription here of where to remove the wood. And then that action will drop in to this stock. I'll have to see about the different radiuses of the barrel. But anyway, it's all a labor of love. So with time, it will turn out. And definitely all these things that I'm doing, this is just cosmetic stuff. And another solution, which somebody was telling me about on the phone, was I could remove the rust just so it doesn't come back, and then I could have it Cerakoted or something like that. But I'll probably keep going with the Dremel. There's some really deep patches here, but and you can get away with a lot with Cerakote and those coatings. You can often fill holes and voids one way or another and then Cerakote. But I probably won't do that. I'll just keep it original. This is not going to be a big dollar item no matter what I do. But it'll be a very useful rifle. And I've always liked the 458, and I understand, the lot and all these others, which I have, are useful, but I still think that 458 Win Mag is an excellent cartridge. Well, we covered some ground. I hope you find the action interesting. I must have done maybe a dozen T-bolts that were rusted to pieces underneath in the stock. And they came out just like new, not even really detectable, but it takes time, draw filing, but not as much time as you'd think. Anyhow, hope you enjoyed that, and definitely the result will be quite a unique pair of rifles. And this one even has the original sights. So I'm not sure what happened to the stock. I'm presuming that the stock simply collapsed inside. I've seen that. I've seen a saltwood stock, and the inside of the stock actually was this punky, spongy, odd wood that you could remove with your fingernail. It was that badly decomposed, I suppose, by the salt, which you would think is actually would result in preserving the wood. But anyway, obviously some chemical process going on that I don't know. Anyhow, we'll probably update you for fun over time with this as I keep filing away. And then at some point I'll decide that's enough and then get it into the stock and then eventually get it re-engraved. Anyway, it's all really interesting. All right. Thank you for being here. Thanks for watching. And keep an eye out for these Browning Safaris. They're, again, forgotten, like the Husqvarnas, not quite as forgotten as the Husqvarnas used to be, but a Browning Safari is never a bad rifle. These, if you made this today, I don't know, $3 or $4 grand, and for starters. But it's even hard to find a craftsman these days. All right, well, take care until next time, and we'll see you again.